Okay, so this worksheet is going to cover our steps and some examples of dividing polynomials. So for step 1, we are going to need to factor the top, and we are talking about the numerator here. For step 2, we're going to factor the bottom, and that is talking about the denominator. For step 3, we are going to cancel out factors, and this would just be our dividing process. And then for step 4, we are going to just simplify. Okay, so go ahead and cross out example 2. We made a mistake on that one, so we're not going to work that problem out. But we will start with example 1. Okay, so to factor, our first step is to factor the top. So in order to do that, we have to do our A, B, C, and possibly our box method. So for the x squared plus 5x plus 6, our A is going to equal 1, our B is going to equal 5, and our C is going to equal 6. Since my A value is 1, I don't need to use the box here. So I can go ahead and do A times C, which is 1 times 6, and that's 6. So 2 factors of 6 that will add up to give me 5 are 2 and 3, because 2 times 3 is 6, and 2 plus 3 equals 5. So therefore my factors would be x plus 2 and x plus 3. Okay, so the second step is to factor the bottom, but my bottom only contains an x plus 3, and I can't factor that any further, so I'm just going to keep it the same. So now for step 3, we're going to cancel out our factors. So the factors that I'll be able to cancel out here are the x plus 3 on the top and the bottom. So that leaves me with just x plus 2, and that would be it in simplified form. Okay, now flipping over to the back side. All right, so for example 3, we have 2x squared plus 5x minus 12 divided by x plus 4. So again, I'm going to start with step 1, where we're going to factor the top. So we have a equals 2, and I guess I should say I do not have a greatest common factor other than 1, so my equation will stay the same. So again, a equals 2, b equals 5, and c equals negative 12. So this time, since my a value is not 1, I'm going to have to use my box method. So in the top left, I'm going to put my first term, which is 2x squared. And in the bottom right, I'm going to put my last term, which is negative 12. So now I'm ready to do my a times c. So 2 times negative 12 gives me negative 24. So 2 factors of negative 24 that add up to give me 5 would be 8 and negative 3. Because 8 times negative 3 gives me negative 24. And 8 plus negative 3 gives me 5. So these are the numbers I'll use to fill out the rest of my box. So I have 8x and negative 3x. And now I'm ready to start factoring out. So I have a common factor in my first column of x, and in the second column I have a common factor of 4. Now in the top row I have a common factor of 2x, and then for the bottom row I have a common factor of negative 3. So my factors for the top are going to be x plus 4 and 2x minus 3. So step 2 would be to factor the bottom, but my bottom is just x plus 4, and I can't factor that any further, so I'm just going to rewrite it under here, keep it the same. So now step 3 would be to cancel out our factors, so we can cancel out our x plus 4 on the top and the bottom. So that's going to leave me with the 2x minus 3, which will be my answer. Okay, so example 4. We have x squared plus 3x minus 4 divided by x plus 4. So I'm going to start by factoring the top. So I don't have a greatest common factor other than 1, so I'll keep my equation the same. So I'll have a equals 1, b equals 3, c equals negative 4. So since a equals 1, I don't have to use the box method, so I can go ahead and do a times c. So 1 times negative 4 gives me negative 4, and 2 factors of negative 4 that add up to give me 3 would be negative 1 and 4, because negative 1 times 4 gives me negative 4, and negative 1 plus 4 gives me 3. So therefore my factors would be x minus 1 and x plus 4 divided by, and so step 2 is to factor the bottom, but I can't factor this out any further, so I'll just rewrite it under here. So now we're ready for step 3, where we cancel out our factors. So we can cancel out our x plus 4 on the top and the bottom, and therefore our final answer would be x minus 1. Okay. All right. So example 5. So we start with step 1. We're going to factor the top. So I don't have a greatest common factor here other than 1, so I can go ahead and list my a, b, and c. So a is going to equal 2, b is equal to 11, and c equals 5. Since a is not 1, I'm going to have to use my box here. So for the top left, I'm going to put my first term, 2x squared, and the bottom right, I'm going to put my last term, which is 5. So now I'm ready to do my a times my c. 2 times 5 gives me 10, and 2 factors of 10 that add up to give me 11 would be 1 and 10, because 1 times 10 gives me 10, and 1 plus 10 gives me 11. So these are the numbers that I'll use to fill out the rest of my box. So 1x and 10x, and now I'm ready to factor out. So from the first column, I can factor out 2x, and the second column, I can factor out 1. In the top row, I can factor out x, and in the bottom row, I can factor out 5. So therefore, my factors would be 2x plus 1 and x plus 5 divided by. So step 2 is where we factor the bottom or the denominator, but I can't factor this any further, so I'll keep it just like that, 2x plus 1. So step 3, I have to cross out my factors so I can cancel out 2x plus 1 on the top and the bottom. So my final answer would be x plus 5. Okay, so example 6. So again, we start with factoring the top. So I'm going to start by listing my a, b, and c because they don't have a greatest common factor other than 1. So a equals 1, b equals negative 7, and c equals 12. And since a equals 1, I don't have to use the box method, so I can go ahead and do my a times c. So 1 times 12 is just 12. So 2 factors of 12 that add up to give me a negative 7. Since my product here is positive, but the sum that I want to come out to be, or that I'm needing is going to need to come out to be negative, that means both of my factors here that I'm going to use are going to be negative. So it's going to be negative 3 and negative 4, because negative 3 times negative 4 gives me a positive 12, but negative 3 plus negative 4 gives me a negative 7. So therefore my factors would be x minus 3 and x minus 4 divided by. So step 2, we factor the bottom, but we do not need to factor, or this is factor it as far as it can go. So we'll just rewrite it as x minus 4 on the bottom here. Now step 3 would be to cross out our factors. So we can cross out x minus 4 from the top and bottom. So that means our solution would be x minus 3. And this concludes the worksheet for dividing polynomials.